Just a quick video, guys, to show you a few of the upgraded parts that I've used on my Arrma Notorious, and maybe some upgrades that you might think about doing, just because there's some weak spots on this truck, and I'm just going to let you know about them and show you the parts that I use to fix the problems. In this video, we're going to show you how to put the new RPM bumper on the front of the Notorious. As you can see, the front bumper is just not designed properly for this truck. If a lot of front impacts on these two screws here cause the bumper to just rip out. And you can see that I put JB glue a few times to try and hold this thing together, and it just gets ripped off every time I bring it out. So I decided to go with the RPM bumper that mounts into the bottom, and they give you longer screws to go right through the plastic, through the chassis, and then into the diff casing. And instead of having just the two front screws holding it on, it's going to have these 4 screws, which in my opinion is a lot more sturdy for this type of truck. You're doing tons of stunts and bouncing off things. Having these 4 screws holding it on puts the stress on the chassis rather than just these 2 screws, which is what's happening every time. Is when you hit even the corner of the bumper tweaks the one side and rips that side out, and then you hit the other side and it tweaks and it pulls, and then it pulls on the other screw. And there's nothing you can do about it but just try to put it back on and hope that it holds, and then it just rips again. And the whole time you're risking having these Arrma pins come flying out while you're driving. And yeah, it's been a real stopper to my fun. The truck's awesome, it runs really well, but this just seems to stop every run. I have to bring it inside and fix the front. I don't get a full battery life. Yeah, I might bash it a little too hard, but that's what these trucks are designed for. So I think this is just one of their design flaws that they should look into fixing. Maybe just putting a bumper that, like a bumper that connects into here. Just continue this plastic right up so that it goes into six screws would make it even stronger, so that the light bumps on the front isn't really affecting the chassis, and then the big bumps, you know what I mean, the whole chassis front end and the bumper work together to absorb the impact. And essentially you just want the bumper is just to protect your shock towers from getting heavy impacts directly into your middle of your shock tower, or you know, something that might smash the bottom of your chip into your bottom of your Arrma. Your bumper will help just kind of bounce you over one of those objects. So let's continue on with the RPM bumper installation. You have to leave this piece on unless you order a rear cover, which I'm going to do. There's a cover that you have to put on to keep the pins in for your Arms. So if you don't have the extra front piece, I just crudely glued my plastic piece back together so that it would hold the screws and hold the pins in for now, and until I get the part comes in for the front here. I'm going to just leave the stock bumper grill on for now, and the RPM bumper does fit even with that bumper in the way. It doesn't get in the way. So I'm going to take the 4 screws off and show you what it looks like with the new bumper. Now you can see we have the finished installed product. Well, while you were watching me put it together, you noticed I was putting the screws in a little bit at a time. This just ensures that the plate's coming down evenly, and so you're not putting the screw in on a bit of an angle or stressing the screw out in any way, shape, or form, so that when it goes into the diff housing, it's in a nice clean fit, and it's really snug, because you're going to be taking a lot of impacts. You don't want any discrepancies in how you put these bolts in. And once you start snugging it down, you'll notice that as you're snugging it, that it gets tight, but you can keep turning, and you think that maybe you've overturned the nuts, the bolts. But if you notice that they're countersunk, you can use my video as maybe a guide. They do get really hard to turn. That's when you know that you've snugged them down. It will get to almost where you feel like it's stopped your turning, and that's usually a good indication that you've reached it. In this video, as you can see, the back ones are a little bit deeper than the front ones. These ones might have a couple extra turns left into them, but these ones for sure are really snug. I couldn't turn them anymore, and if I did, I know I would have to put 25-30 pounds on them, and I would strip the plastic. So just use that maybe as a guideline. But the bumper fits on very nicely. I'll lift the front end up so you can see that the Arrma bumper still sits in front. There's no issues with how it fits inside there. It should do a great job. I'm really happy with the product. If you want the part number for the skid plate in the rear that I put on, it just goes over right on top of your chassis. You just have to take the bolts out and put the new ones that they provide for you, and this is the part number for the rear skid plate, and this is the part for the front bumper. And I'm pretty sure this goes on all of the Arrma products, or you can get a specific one for the Arrma product. This video is the continuation of the bumper installation. I'll show you the top view of how the old Arrma Notorious bumper sits in front just to hold those pins in. If you do have one of those cases that goes over the back to block those pins in, that would be a much better option, because these pins still have a little bit of play. That's another flaw. I don't understand why they made the front bumper the way it is. If you guys have purchased an Arrma, do this upgrade immediately. You're gonna pull your hair out trying to keep this front bumper on. It's gonna stop your runs prematurely, and then you're gonna start breaking other things because you're frustrated. So you end up, instead of having landing on your nose, you're gonna end up landing on your tail more often, and then you break these things, these little wing mounts. If you look down, check these on a regular basis, because they'll get little splits in them, and this support is so important to be bound to the shock tower and to here, because if either or is broken down, it puts more stress on the brace on the inside, which I had to change as well, which I think is another design flaw. And this thing up here is a major design flaw, because you can see that there's a gap that I can fit my finger in, and this play would make sense if this was meant to flex a lot, but I don't think that this particular plastic part, when it's only got a small little plastic base to sit on, should be flexing in any way, shape, or form. But I think these upgrades that I've done will mitigate the problems, because the plastic one that comes stock, the one screw that holds in the center here strips. Even if it's just one eyelet, allows this to play, and this little bit of play, when you hit the back end on the top or the bottom, it flexes this little plastic piece here, and you're going to end up breaking this
with just regular like 3S type bashing, let alone doing 6S 20-foot flips and stuff like that. If any of this breaks down, it causes the center diff to break, or the rear differential case and stuff to break. So in my opinion, this is a must upgrade. And people have do the tower to tower brace, which is not really needed unless you are doing the ultra bashing. But this mitigates the stripping because this is metal, so this will never break down unless you really have a bad wreck. And normally you would know that, and you could check to see if this is engaged, and if this is all solid, it uses the wing mount and the diff case as a brace, and I think that does more than enough of a job to brace this back end, which is it's just brilliant design, but it all has to be working together. And the same with the front. I changed the front because it has 2 weak points. The plastic front brace screw gets stripped here and in here, and then it allows the front to twist too much, and then you're gonna have problems with your diff plastics in here and stuff like that getting beat up while this can move back and forth. So I recommend the GPM metal upgraded part. It was shipped to me from Hong Kong. It took a long time, about 3 weeks. If you'd like the part numbers on those, I have another video of me actually installing this particular piece and the GPM metal servo casing that I think is a must upgrade, because the stock servo, if you tighten down the screws, it does stay nice and sturdy, but same problem when you take a bump, a really good one, it twists and allows these screws to kind of strip from the mount a little bit. Even if it's 1 or 2 threads, it gives it some play, and then you end up breaking the stock one. So I took the stock mount off and put a metal one on from GPM as well. I purchased all 3 of those together. So these are the full upgrades that I've done. I just need the one front plate to be added, so I can remove this, and that'll give this a little bit more breather room, because I know if I hit something really hard, it's going to smack into this anyways. I only have about a finger's gap around, so if this front bumper really does take a bang, it's going to bounce into this anyways and snap it off. So that's one thing that I'm going to have to finish up. Just a view of my car. Everything pretty much is awesome from the Creighton or the Notorious. They make a brilliant truck. Very few mistakes made in the building. When I got it, there were hardly any loose screws. I checked everything out. It was in great condition. And Arrma is now owned by Horizon Hobby. So if you have any issues, Horizon Hobby is known to be really good. I had a few issues taking off the pinion gear, and I banged up the motor mount, and I sent them a message saying that it was really hard to get the pinion off, and it should be really hard to take your pinion off. And I banged up everything trying to get the new one on and the new one or the old one off. And you know what, it was my fault, but they because I was a new customer, they felt it was necessary to just send me out some free parts just in case. So I got they sent me this for free in the mail, which is the replacement, new polished. I haven't installed that yet. They sent me all of the front ball cup assembly set, so everywhere there's attach for the ball cup plastic attachments for your steering. So this plastic here, the plastic that it conjoins up there, everything to do with the steering. They sent me a full 2 sets of the ball cups for the front and rear, and they sent me a new rear wing mount as well, because I expressed to them that this was a weak point in the design and I wasn't able to notice it and it was smashing all of these parts here, so I had to purchase a new diff casing, and I showed them all the receipts and stuff like that. So they sent me out a new diff case and all the parts for it. So everything that I have had to purchase for this car has been paid back to me from Arrma in extra parts. So I'm really happy with Horizon Hobby. And thanks for tuning in.